Success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, you Road to Growth listeners. Today I have Barney Connaughton. He was a family law attorney. Now he's strictly mediator. And you're not going to catch me calling him Esquire, Judge, anything like that. He is pretty relaxed. I mean, from our initial conversation, and I'm assuming in the conversation is going to be pretty relaxed too. Thanks, Barney, for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, Vinny. Really appreciate it.
So, yeah, walk us through. I mean, I've had a lot of partnerships on here, and the interaction you see with people, the partnerships you're dealing with, maybe when it's a more of a gray area with mediating with husband and wife, significant others. What does that look like? What does that look like for you on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to understand the difference between what an attorney does and what a mediator does.
Yeah.
As an attorney in a divorce, I would just represent one of the spouses. I would give them legal advice, be their advocate, stand at their side, and protect them through the court process. As a mediator, I'm a neutral person and I'm there for both of them. So I'm not allowed to give them legal advice, but I educate them on the law and the issues so that they're in a good spot to make decisions. So I'm more of a guide than a protector and an advocate. So that's kind of the big difference between the two, I would say.
What was easier and funner? Was it being on one side only, or kind of being the middle person on both sides?
So fun. When we talk about divorce, we're not typically talking about fun. So I guess going into court sometimes and being successful in your arguments with the judge, that feels good. But avoiding having to go to the judge and helping the couple sort it out themselves is a lot more. It feels a lot better. Both sides are kind of okay with whatever that outcome is, as opposed to having winners and losers and so much on the line. So definitely when I work with both sides in mediation, the outcome feels a lot more successful than litigating it.
Well, let's rewind to a young Barney. I mean, do you have family? Were you like the middle person for your parents? I mean, who was a young Barney growing up?
I was number 5 of 7. So I have four brothers and 2 sisters. And it was a full house. So yeah.
Did you feel like growing up that you were basically the mediator in that family, kind of bring people together, or was that not a role that you had at that young age?
I don't think I would consider myself the mediator. I was just another one of the kids. But I've always not really liked conflict and wanted to find ways to solve the conflict and sort that out. So I think that's probably what drew me to law is, I guess they talk about 2 different kinds of attorneys. That there's attorneys that like to fight, and there's attorneys that like to solve things and fix the conflict and make it go away so that life can move on. And that's kind of, I would consider myself more that type of an attorney, just trying to fix things.
So what was your original intentions? You're a young kid, I mean, pathway towards getting into law. Did you know what kind of law you want to practice, or was I just want to kind of get into that field?
Yeah, when I went to college, I wanted to be a writer. And I kind of, I guess, fell into law. And then when I started practicing law, I had not taken a family law course in law school. There was a program that the county bar actually had, which was, it's called the Modest Means Program and the Volunteer Lawyer Program, which were 2 programs for people that didn't have a lot of money to get help with their divorce. And so with that program, I got clients for the Modest Means Program. I think I could charge $65 an hour to do that work. But the great thing about it is it gave me a mentor that any problem that I had, any issue, any challenge, I could get on the phone with my mentor and they kind of walk me through. give me good direction on how to resolve it, and how to handle it with the court. So it was a program that I guess on the job training to become a divorce attorney, and so that's how my practice actually started. I came out of law school at a time where the job market was super impacted. It was not a good time to be an attorney. There were too many attorneys and not enough jobs. And so I hung my shingle with two of my fellow law school buddies and took what we could get at the beginning.
Well, I'm intrigued by that. So before we get into that and how you kind of hung your shingles with some of your buddies, a writer. So you wanted to be a writer. How did you fall into law from writing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be one very good quality of being an attorney is being able to write. And so there's lots of people that go into law that were English majors or were writers just because there's a lot of writing that's required in your pleadings and filings and whatnot with court and writing up settlements. So having a mastery of English is definitely a good asset to have when you go into it. And also as a writer, if you want to start a family, it's kind of a challenging career. I mean, it's hard to make a lot of money and be able to and to count on consistent money, certainly as a beginning writer. And so I fell into law as a way of supporting the family, making use of my ability to write. And then also I've kind of on the side, I've done writing here and there, and I've always planned on one day coming back to writing. So
if you had to describe your writing, if money was no object, time, and you had all the time to invest in writing, do you kind of have like a style that you'd be writing right now?
I like writing short stories. I like writing poetry.
Oh, wow.
I'd like to explore writing a little bit longer than short stories. So I've actually have a plan in the next 5 years or so to wind down my practice and move into writing. So
I mean, I've had people on here that have had like a passion, right? And it sounds like writing was that passion and it still is that passion to that degree. Yet you kind of stated that you had to get into law because that really paid the bills, or at least projected to pay the bills to bring a family. Was there ever any time when you were transitioning to being a lawyer, being an attorney, being a mediator, that you kind of regretted it? Like, oh man, I wish I could do more writing or anything like that. Did that happen at all?
no, I think I think the opposite happened, where I really found kind of a place for myself. I mean, there's so much divorce, and to have people have professionals in the practice of family law that are into it for problem solving and helping couples get through it. I've found my calling with divorce mediation and working with couples to help them do it in a good way to get through the process with as few bumps and scratches, with the kids, being well held through the process, and letting the family move through it and get to the next chapter without being stuck in it for years, which happens with a lot of the litigation. So the opposite, I haven't had regrets of having gone into law instead of writing. Writing's always there. I mean, I can, even now I'm getting up earlier in the morning and I'm doing some creative writing stuff before I dive into my day. So I can do that part, but also I just think that there's a huge value that I can give our community in helping families get through this stuff without beating each other up too much.
Well, let's jump back to so you hang your shingles with your buddies that you went to law school with. Now, was that a good decision?
It was good at the time. We had the business was called Connaughton, Crow and Frame. us three buddies, we had an office in Pacific Beach. I had sand in all my files. I had a surfboard stored in one of my buddies' apartments that was right there in PB. So at lunchtime, I could go grab my surfboard and go surf. But the money wasn't very good, you know? And I actually made a decision to go join a firm when about the time my wife became pregnant with my first child. So we weren't making enough money, and we were having fun. We were doing there just wasn't a lot available for us to do at that time. And so short term, it was great. All three of us moved on and joined firms before I was able to come back and set up my own practice. But
something that kind of always intrigues me, how someone's business or work life not compares, but kind of weighs against someone's personal. And being that you're in family law, right? How did that kind of business of kind of seeing kind of hiccups come through on different people's relationships affect your own kind of growing family at that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've never been divorced, so I don't share that I don't share that attribute with my clients. I haven't been through it. I've seen so many couples that have been through it, so I understand, but I haven't experienced that myself. I have 3 kids, and so I know the feeling when I'm dealing with families that have children that need to come to an agreement that they don't get to spend 100% of the time with their kids. I have the sympathy and the connection with that, and my heart is with each of those couples when we're working through figuring out something that works. I've always, I guess not at the beginning, I wasn't able to separate what was happening at work with what was happening at home, and it would weigh heavy on me at home. But I've gotten to the point where I do that work at the office, and then when I come home, I don't have to think about it. I don't think about it anymore until I'm back into the office next day. So it hasn't negatively impacted my relationships and my life. And I guess important, family is super important to me. That was instilled in me with my own parents, the importance of family and connection with family. And so each couple that I'm working with, I carry that, and I really am sympathetic that they're going through what they're going through. If there's any other resource that doesn't have to be divorce that they can explore, therapy, whatever, I'm absolutely wide open and listening for it as I work with couples. I mean, they're coming to me because they're looking to get divorced. At least one of them is looking to get divorced. So they're not coming to me to give them therapy, or to help them right the ship or whatever. But I definitely have my ears open for that, and my heart is in that, and my heart carries the importance of family. And so this holistic approach of divorce, where they can come out the other side and have some sort of relationship, definitely have good relationship with their children, and be able to co-parent and that sort of thing. All that stuff is very valuable to me. And so so my personal feelings reflect in the work that I do and the work I do with couples.
Being that you've been a part of so many mediations, seeing the situation maybe on the back end of divorces, are there nuggets that you've taken away, and maybe from even your personal life of the positivity, but are there nuggets you've taken away what makes basically a good partnership? It could be in business, it could be in relationship. I mean, there's probably nuggets that if they would have done these beforehand, they probably would never see you down the road. Is there anything like that you've taken away?
Yeah, I think that clear communication. I mean, usually a culprit in divorce is couples' inability to communicate and tackle conflict as it's coming up until it escalates and becomes a problem. The ability to communicate about finances and get on the same page about finances. I mean, that's clear. That's a clear challenge that a lot of couples that I work with are having. I mean, there's just trust, maintaining trust in each other, both having the same expectations of the relationship and what it is. And I think constantly recognizing that relationships require work, and you have to work. It's not easy. I've been married for 27 years, and there's just a lot of work that goes into it that you have to do. It's not just automatic. You've got to put in the time and commitment and find time for each other, especially when you have kids. Kids take up a lot of time, and finding ways to maintain your relationship when you also have other things vying for your time, such as the activities of the kids.
Let's go back to your journey. So you leave basically a partnership with some buddies, and then you jump to a firm. Do you recall what the differences were in that jump?
I got a steady paycheck. I had to ask for time off when I wanted time off. So that was a bit different. I joined a small office. So it was a husband and wife partners, and then myself and another couple of paralegals that worked for the office. So I was working for them. I was making money for them. And I had a set schedule that I needed to be into the office. And I really enjoyed having my own, setting my own hours and doing that. And so when I went to work for the firm, I always knew that was going to be a short-term thing until I was able to go back out on my own. So I think the benefit is the security, and knowing you're getting that paycheck, and all those business ownership challenges are theirs, not mine. I just go in and clock out. But definitely the flexibility that you get in owning your own business was something that I didn't have during that time.
You said that you were there until knew you can go on your own. How did you know it was the right time to go on your own when that time came about?
Yeah, that's I think I was just really feeling it. Okay. I don't know that it was. I wasn't there financially. It wasn't like I had it all figured out on how the bills were going to be paid once I did it. I had a little equity in my home, I think, at the time, so I could get a loan, like a home equity line kind of thing, to kind of back me as I made the transition. But I just felt like it was time. I was just, I'd kind of gone up the ladder as far as I was going to go with the opportunity that I was in. And yeah, I just wanted to get back out on my own. And I just felt like I I had sufficient experience so I could sell myself. And it was just a matter of figuring out how to make the phone ring and get clients to walk in the door.
What was the conversation like with your wife at that time? Because she has to be a part of it, I guess, the jump, right? I mean, so what was that conversation looking like?
She was supportive. I guess she was a little scared by it, but she was supportive of. I mean, I had been talking about it, okay. And so she was on board with me doing it. She was definitely supportive.
Was there any? I mean, because it sounds like it was just kind of just a gut reaction, right? Just saying, I want to do this, I want to do this, but there was really no catalyst. It sounds like it was just, we're going to do it today. It's going to happen. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the ultimate catalyst is once you establish it, you're working for yourself, and the financial picture looks better. I mean, you get to that point where you're making your salary that you were making with the firm, and then you can move past that, and the hard work or whatever that you're putting into your business is going into your own pocket, and instead of the pocket of the other owner of the business. So there was financial incentive also. It wasn't just a whimsy. Oh, let's just do this so I have free time. It was I want to do better financially for the family, and also kind of coupled with that was this flexibility. I wanted to coach my kids' sports. I wanted to be able to go on class field trips, camping trips, or whatever. I wanted to be able to be more involved in their lives, and not have to ask other people for permission to be able to do this thing or that thing, or get off early or whatever. I could just put all that into my own schedule. So it's the flexibility of being able to be very actively involved, while maintaining, the financial benefit, and being able to benefit even more financially from the hard work.
Do you think there was anything they could have offered you that would have wanted you to stay with that firm, or is it just you needed to kind of go back on your own?
Yeah, I don't know that they were in a position to be able to offer me what I guess double my salary or something like that. I mean, and partnership where I get to, set my hours, and I don't know. I don't know that there's something that they could have offered to me to have me stay. I think it had just become that time. I knew what it felt like to be self-employed, and I knew that I was headed back to that point.
What do you think has been like the biggest roadblock from kind of building your brand from that time you started it?
Biggest roadblock. So the biggest challenge is making a transition from litigating to mediating. That's a kind of the tricky thing with mediation is it's a very efficient process that each divorcing couple pays a lot less money for. So when you get hired as an attorney, if you're hired and spend 2 years helping somebody solve their divorce, they're paying you for 2 years worth of work. Whereas with my mediations, I get hired, and usually within about a month, we sort everything out. And so there's the amount of work that I'm going to do in a month for a couple. So there's a lot less work in mediating a divorce. And so you have to have a lot more clients to be able to fill the hours. And so I think that's the biggest challenge, is you gotta figure out a process that brings in, that gets the word out that there's this option to mediate, for one thing. Most people, when they're at the start of their divorce, they're looking for an attorney to hire. And so I was having to figure out, how do I take these people that are coming and looking for me as an attorney, educate them on mediation, and get them into the mediation process, get their spouse on board with it, and not lose them to some other attorney that they're gonna come to, is gonna, get them signed up to litigate, which is an easier step to take. You just have to work with one of the spouses and have them make that decision. So that was a big challenge when I made the decision that I don't want to litigate anymore. I don't think I'm doing as good for families when I'm litigating as when I'm sitting down with both of them, helping them mediate. So figuring out how to make it financially doable to shift my practice to entirely mediation. And so I think that was the biggest challenge. And the answer to it is getting the word out. So opportunities like today, talking to you about this, is just letting the world know that there's mediation, and it actually should be the first choice before people go and hire attorneys. Because when you hire an attorney and you take your divorce to the courts, you're ceding the decision-making power from yourself. It starts with, it's yours and your spouse's to figure out how you're going to divorce. And when you hire an attorney and then you file and you bring a motion to the court, you're saying this stranger in this robe gets to make these decisions, as opposed to you, the couple. So I think it's just figuring out, the biggest challenge was figuring out how to educate and get couples in to hire me to mediate their case, as opposed to the easier process, which was to just have them find me as an attorney and I represent one and litigate their case.
What's that process look like? Because in a divorce, and there are amicable divorces, right? And the ones that are a little more aggressive, if one person brings in an attorney and says, "Hey, let's mediate this," the other one says, "Oh, what's the catch?" Right? I mean, why? This is the person you brought on. Maybe we should find this person together. I mean, how do you do it where you show that you're impartial in for both of them? Say,
Yeah, that's a great question. Is I try to have my first contacts be with both of them. So my process is I provide a 30-minute free consult. And a lot of times it's one of the spouses that's reaching out, and I say, "Hey, I do this mediation. Are you familiar with this?" I offer a free consultation, and I send them a link, and I encourage them to bring their spouse for that initial consult. So then I'm giving the information to both of them, because my biggest job is, like you say, to make them both feel like I'm there for both of them, that I'm a neutral person. And if I've already had the conversation with one of them, I'm at a little bit more of a risk that the other one's going to question my neutrality. And I mean, it's my hope that when the other one speaks with me, they can see that clearly that's what I am. I'm neutral. I just want to help both of you figure this thing out. And so ideally I start everything with both of them. I don't give any legal advice, or all I do is explain the process to one of them if I'm meeting with one first. But yeah, getting them both in at the beginning is important.
Is there any is there any differences in, let's say, in a mediation, if they both agree on an aspect of it for child support, everything like that, relative to a judge basically in a divorce hearing says this is what's going to happen? Is there any changes that happen to the verdict? Like, let's say if they want to reassess it like 6 months later, a year later, or is it pretty much the same? It's just figuring out how you get to the end line.
Yeah, so the end result is going to be the same thing as what a judge would do. So okay. The couple reaches their agreement. They don't have to go by what a judge would do. They could do something different if they want to. I let them know what a judge is likely to do, so they know that, and they're consciously making a decision to do something different if they decide to do something different. But whatever they agree upon in the end, as long as we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's and complied with whatever the court requires, the judge is going to accept the terms of their agreement, even if it's not a perfectly equal division of the property, or even if it's not guideline child support. California has guideline support. We plug numbers into the computer and out comes a number. In the agreement, we have to say this is what that number is, but this couple has decided to go with a different number, and okay. So they can do that, and the court will accept it. And that's the really nice thing with mediation, is the couple gets to decide. Once they're educated, they understand what their rights are. They understand what the court considers fair. Then they can, if something else feels fair to the two of them that they can agree upon, then they can go that route. And the nice thing is we can get creative and do things that definitely the court wouldn't do, but makes sense. I mean, when a good example is like right now we have really high interest rates on loans. So if somebody wants to refinance and buy the other one out, the expense of the mortgage is already a lot more expensive, just because the interest rate is higher, and so if you do that refinance, so we can get creative with delaying the need to take out that new loan, figure out some other way to get the other spouse the money, figure out some way to make sure that the other spouse's credit's not getting messed up by untimely payment. And we can just fashion creative things given what the couple wants. Or again, we can go by the book and just, you either sell the house or you refinance the house now. That's what a judge would do. So the couple can go that route. So and
probably save a lot of money on legal fees because you guys are mutually coming together with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, it's a lot less lucrative financially because each case, is less, but it's nice because the couple has maintained control. They've made the decisions. They've sat right down to the table and sorted out. So they're not just languishing in the issues for months and years. All those things create less stress. which benefits the kids, benefits the family.
Well, Barney, if someone's listening right now and they go, you know what, this kind of feels like it might be good for me, what's the best way of them reaching out for you?
So my website is ahealthydivorce.com. My business is called A Healthy Divorce, and they can go onto my website. There's a link on my website that allows them to schedule a free consultation. It shows my calendar and availability. They can share that information with their spouse and schedule a consult. And what I like to say is, with mediation, you can give it a go. And the investment is the amount of time you spend sitting down in the same room with the mediator. And if it doesn't work, the court's waiting over there. But most of the time it does work, and it's an effective process, and it's not a cutting the corners kind of process. You're going to get educated. You're going to understand what your rights are. You're going to get some detailed information about the law. You're going to be required to exchange information regarding what assets and debts you have, what your income is. So you're both going to have, the information that the court requires you to have, which is documents on what your assets are and your debts and pay stubs and tax returns and those things. So it's a well-educated, full disclosure of assets and incomes, and then just a creative process of working through what your options are, and coming to an agreement. And then all the formalities are handled by the mediator. I write up the agreement. I prepare the petition to file the case with the court. The couple signs off on the paperwork, and then the judge signs off on the paperwork, and their divorce is granted that way without having to step foot in the courthouse. So just going to the website and scheduling a free consultation is a good place to start.
If one of the spouses, because I know you're in San Diego, Southern California, if one of the spouses isn't in San Diego, or if maybe they're both in Northern California, but they heard you on the podcast or somewhere else, do you have other resources, or they can reach out to you and you might be able to connect them with someone else, or how does that process work?
So ever since COVID, I also do Zoom mediations. Okay. So as long as they're in California, okay. I'm licensed to practice law in California. I'm not acting as an attorney technically, but I can prepare pleadings. I've actually been doing mediations all over California. So as long as one of the spouses resides in California, I recently did one where the other spouse was in Japan. But the court here had jurisdiction to make orders. So I provide the option of doing it via Zoom, or if they're here in San Diego, then they can come into my office as well.
Barney, I appreciate you so much to being on the Road to Growth podcast. I'm going to finish off one last question. If we're talking in 5 years from now, where do you see your practice and yourself?
So I have a 5-year plan that I'm going to be, my plan is to be retired in 5 years. Okay. So in 5 years, I'm going to be I'm purchasing a farm that I'm going to be living on, and I'm going to be writing. So I'm coming back to where all this began, where I'm writing that fiction that, hopefully in 5 years. So hopefully you come back to me in 5 years, and that's where I'm at.
Also, thank you again, Barney, for being on the Road to Growth podcast. So if you're listening right now, maybe you're listening in 2027, 2028. Instead of actually reaching out to Barney for mediation, maybe you have to find his book on the shelves. Thank you, Barney, for being here. Everyone go in the show notes, go find Barney. If you have, even if you're maybe at the early stages, you're thinking about that you might, want to split with your spouse, it doesn't hurt for a free consultation. Thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe, please share, and go find Barney. Bye, everyone.